15 years. That's how long it had been since I last saw Amanda. The woman I once called my wife, the mother of my children, the person who shattered me in ways I never thought possible. And yet, there she was. The moment her name appeared on my phone screen, I felt the air leave my lungs. My hands, steady and practiced from years of building a new life, trembled against the weight of old wounds. I should have ignored the call. I should have deleted the message. But curiosity, or maybe something more complicated, got the best of me. "Mark, please. I need to talk to you. Just once." It was such a simple request, but it carried the weight of our entire past. For 15 years, she had been nothing more than a ghost. Absent from my life, absent from our children's lives. And now she wanted to talk? I debated my options. Every logical part of me screamed to leave the past in the past. But a smaller, quieter part whispered that I needed closure, that I needed to see her, to finally put everything to rest. So I agreed. I met Amanda at a small cafe, the kind of place we used to frequent when we were young and in love. It felt strange, almost surreal, to be sitting across from her again. She looked older, of course, 15 years will do that to a person. But there was something else. A weariness in her eyes, a hesitation in her movements. "Mark," she breathed, her voice softer than I remembered. I said nothing, waiting for her to speak. She swallowed hard, her fingers twisting the napkin in front of her. "Thank you for meeting me. I know I don't deserve this." No, she didn't. But I nodded anyway, signaling for her to continue. "I've thought about this moment for years," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "And now that I'm here, I don't even know where to start." I leaned back, arms crossed. "Why now, Amanda?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. "Why after all these years?" Her eyes flickered with something, regret, maybe. "Because I need to apologize. Because I need you to know that what I did, I never stopped regretting it." A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "Regret," I repeated. "Amanda, regret doesn't erase 15 years of silence. It doesn't change the fact that you left, that you walked away from everything." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "I know," she whispered, "and I know I don't have the right to ask for anything from you. But I need to try." I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. This wasn't what I expected. I thought she'd come with excuses, with justifications. But she was just raw. For the first time in 15 years, I saw a glimpse of the woman I used to love. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt something other than anger. But forgiveness? That was something I wasn't sure I could ever give. Amanda's words lingered between us, heavy and unspoken. I could see the weight of time on her face, in the way her hands trembled against the coffee cup. But the scars she left on me, on our children, ran too deep to be smoothed over by an apology. "I don't know what you expect me to say," I admitted after a long pause. "You're sorry? That's supposed to change everything?" She flinched, her fingers tightening around the napkin in front of her. "No," she said quietly. "I know it doesn't. But I've carried this regret for so long, and I need you to hear it." I studied her, searching for signs of manipulation, for some hidden motive. But all I saw was a woman who looked far too much like a stranger now. "Why now, Amanda?" I asked again, softer this time. 15 years, and you never reached out. "Why now?" She exhaled shakily, looking down. "Because I was a coward," she admitted. "Because I didn't know how to face you. Because I convinced myself that you were better off without me." "That wasn't your choice to make," I said, my voice tighter than I wanted it to be. "You didn't just leave me, Amanda. You left them. You walked away from Emily and Jacob like they were nothing." Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought they'd be better without me," she whispered. "I thought if I stayed away, they'd forget how much I hurt them." I shook my head, a bitter chuckle escaping me. "You don't get it, do you? They didn't forget. They waited. They wondered why their mother didn't love them enough to stay. Do you have any idea how many nights I sat with Jacob while he cried himself to sleep? How many birthdays Emily refused to celebrate because she didn't want to blow out candles without you there?" She covered her mouth, silent sobs shaking her shoulders. But it wasn't my job to comfort her. Not anymore. I know I failed them, she choked out. And if they hate me, I understand. But I want to try. I want to try to fix whatever I can. I scoffed, leaning back. Fix, I repeated. Amanda, you don't just show up after 15 years and expect to piece together what you shattered. I know, she whispered. But I need to try. Please, Mark. Let me see them. Her request hit me harder than I expected. Could I really allow her back into their lives after everything? Could I risk letting her hurt them again? I didn't know. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely lost. Amanda's plea hung in the air between us, raw and desperate. She wanted to see them. After 15 years, after walking away without so much as a backward glance, she wanted back in their lives. I ran a hand down my face, the weight of her request pressing down on me like a vice. You don't just get to walk back in, Amanda, I said, my voice rough with restraint. You left. They suffered. And now you think a conversation is going to fix that. I don't think anything can fix it, she admitted, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I just want to try. I just want to see them, to tell them the truth, to let them know that leaving wasn't about them. I clenched my jaw. That's not how they see it. I know, she whispered, and I don't blame them. I wanted to lash out, to tell her she didn't deserve this chance. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if denying her would be for me or for them. I had spent so many years shielding Emily and Jacob from the pain of her absence. And now, I didn't know if reopening that wound would help them heal or cut them even deeper. They're not kids anymore, I finally said. They get to decide if they want to see you. Not me. She nodded, gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing holding her together. I understand. That's all I can ask for. I pulled out my phone, staring at Amanda for a moment before sending a message to both of them. There's something I need to talk to you about. Can you come over tonight? I put my phone away before I could second-guess myself. Whatever happened next was no longer in my hands. That evening, facing the past, Emily arrived first. At 22, she was every bit as independent as I had always known she'd be. She had my sharp eyes and Amanda's stubborn set to her jaw. When she saw me waiting in the living room, she arched a brow. This is serious, she noted, dropping her bag on the floor. What's up? I didn't get a chance to answer before Jacob walked in, tossing his keys on the counter. At 19, he still had traces of the little boy who used to cling to my hand, but there was a quiet confidence about him now. Dad? He said, his brows furrowing. What's going on? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you react. That got their attention. Emily crossed her arms, and Jacob sat on the edge of the couch, both of them waiting. I exhaled. Your mother contacted me. The words landed like a bomb. Emily's face hardened instantly, her posture turning rigid. Jacob, on the other hand, looked stunned. She wants to see you, I continued. She says she regrets everything. She wants to try to explain. Emily let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. Explain? Explain what exactly? How she left us? How she vanished and never looked back? What? Does she suddenly have a guilty conscience? Jacob, however, was silent. His gaze flickered with something I couldn't quite place. She says she thought we were better off without her. I told them honestly. That staying away was her way of protecting you. Emily scoffed. That's the biggest load of. Jacob cut her off. I want to see her. Silence. Emily's head snapped toward him. You're joking. Jacob shook his head. No. I need to see her. I need to hear it from her. Emily's jaw tightened, her fists clenched. After everything? After all these years? I don't know, he admitted. But I have to know. I could see the storm raging in Emily's eyes, the conflict tearing through her. You do what you want, she finally said, her voice icy. But I want nothing to do with her. And with that, she grabbed her bag and walked out, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Jacob exhaled shakily, looking at me. Can you set it up? I nodded slowly. Yeah, I can. But as I sat there, watching my daughter walk away and my son teeter on the edge of something that could either heal or destroy him, I realized something. This wasn't just about them. This was about me too. And I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next. 2 days later, I stood outside the same cafe where I had first met Amanda after all these years. But this time I wasn't alone. Jacob sat beside me in the car, his hands clasped together in his lap, his foot tapping anxiously against the floor. I could tell he was trying to act composed, but I knew him too well. He was nervous. You don't have to do this, I told him, my voice steady. If you change your mind, we can leave right now. He swallowed hard, staring at the entrance. I need to do this, Dad. I nodded, giving his shoulder a reassuring squeeze before we both stepped out of the car. As we walked inside, I spotted Amanda instantly. She was seated at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup as if it was the only thing keeping her grounded. The moment she saw us, her eyes widened, filling with emotion. Jacob hesitated at the threshold, his entire body stiffening for a brief moment before taking a slow step forward. I followed closely behind. Amanda stood up quickly, almost knocking over her cup. Jacob, she breathed, her voice shaking. Jacob's throat bobbed as he swallowed. Hi, Mom. It was the first time he had said that word in 15 years. I wasn't sure if it was out of habit or something deeper, but it clearly unraveled Amanda. She clasped a hand to her mouth, trying to compose herself before finally lowering it. Thank you for coming, she whispered. I wasn't sure if you would. Jacob slid into the seat across from her, his expression unreadable. I sat next to him, my presence more as an observer than anything else. Amanda's eyes darted between us before settling on Jacob. You look just like your father, she said with a soft smile. But I see pieces of me in you too. Jacob gave a small nod, but he wasn't here for small talk. Why now? He asked bluntly. Why did you wait 15 years to reach out? Amanda's shoulders sagged slightly. Because I was scared, she admitted. Because I thought I was doing what was best for you. Jacob frowned. By disappearing? She winced but didn't look away. I thought I was protecting you from my mistakes. I told myself you'd be happier if I wasn't in your life, if you didn't have to deal with my selfishness. Jacob let out a hollow chuckle. Well, that backfired, didn't it? Amanda blinked rapidly, clearly fighting back tears. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I have no right to ask for anything. But I wanted to see you, even if just once, to tell you how much I love you. Jacob inhaled deeply, running a hand through his hair. I spent my whole life wondering why I wasn't enough for you to stay, he said, his voice raw. I convinced myself that maybe I did something wrong, that maybe if I had been a better son, you wouldn't have left. Amanda shook her head vehemently, reaching across the table instinctively, but stopping just short of touching his hand. Jacob, no, she whispered. It was never you. It was never Emily. It was me, my choices, my failures. Jacob studied her for a long moment, and for the first time, I saw something other than pain in his eyes. I wasn't sure if it was understanding or simply exhaustion, but it was something. I don't know what to do with this, he admitted. I don't know if I can just pretend like you're my mom again. Amanda nodded slowly. I understand. Silence stretched between them before Jacob finally spoke again. I'm not saying I forgive you, he said carefully. But maybe we can talk. Just talk. That's all I can give you right now. A tear slipped down Amanda's cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. That's more than I could have asked for, she whispered. Jacob gave her a small, hesitant nod before glancing at me. Can we go now, Dad? I stood up, knowing he needed time to process everything. Yeah, kid. Let's go. Amanda didn't protest. She simply smiled. A small, fragile thing, before watching us walk away. The drive home was quiet. Jacob stared out the window, his mind clearly lost in thought. I didn't push him. I knew he needed time. After a while, he finally spoke. She looks different, he murmured. She's been through a lot, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Jacob scoffed. Yeah. And whose fault is that? I glanced at him but didn't answer. The truth was, Amanda had made her bed. She had lived with the consequences of her choices. But that didn't mean Jacob's pain wasn't real. What do you think of her? He asked suddenly, turning to face me. I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. I think she's remorseful, I said honestly. But I also think she can't undo what she did, no matter how much she wants to. Jacob nodded slowly. Yeah, that's the part that hurts the most. I reached over, giving his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. You don't have to figure it all out right now, son. I know, he muttered. I just don't know if I want to let her back in or if I just want to move on completely. And that was the thing about wounds like this, they never fully healed. They left scars, reminders of what was lost. For Jacob, this was just the beginning of figuring out what role Amanda would play in his life, if any. For me, though, it was the first time I realized that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as angry as I used to be. Days passed, but the weight of Amanda's return remained heavy in the house. Jacob was more withdrawn than usual, spending long hours alone in his room or taking long drives without saying where he was going. He wasn't angry, at least not outwardly. But there was something brewing inside him, something unresolved. I could see it in the way he hesitated before answering simple questions, the way he kept checking his phone like he was waiting for something. He hadn't reached out to Amanda again. Not yet. But I knew it was only a matter of time. Emily, on the other hand, refused to entertain the thought of their mother being back in their lives. She didn't want to hear about Amanda's regrets, her attempts to make amends, or the pain she claimed to carry. As far as Emily was concerned, Amanda had made her choice years ago, and it was irreversible. One evening, I found her in the kitchen, aggressively chopping vegetables for dinner. Her shoulders were tense, her jaw locked, the frustration practically radiating off her. I knew she wasn't angry about the carrots she was hacking to pieces. She really got to him, didn't she? Emily said without looking up. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Jacob's trying to figure things out in his own way. Emily let out a sharp laugh. Yeah, well, he's an idiot if he thinks she suddenly deserves a place in our lives. Emily. My voice carried a warning, but she ignored it. No, Dad, you don't get it. You always try to be the reasonable one, the understanding one. But I'm sick of it. I don't want to figure things out. I don't want to let her try. She finally turned to face me, her eyes filled with unshed tears. She left. She was supposed to be my mother, and she left. My chest tightened. I had spent years worrying about the scars Amanda had left on them. But hearing the raw pain in Emily's voice made it feel fresh all over again. I took a slow breath, keeping my voice calm. I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Dad, she interrupted. I'm done. I spent my whole life wondering if she ever thought about us, if she missed us on Christmas or our birthdays. And now I find out she didn't even care enough to try until now. I hesitated, unsure of what to say. I wanted to tell her that people change, that regret eats away at people in ways we don't always see. But I couldn't deny that Emily's pain was real, that she had every right to feel abandoned. I just don't get it, she continued, her voice breaking. How do you even talk to her? How can you sit across from the woman who ruined everything and not want to scream at her? Because screaming won't change the past, I said simply. Emily shook her head, blinking rapidly. Well, I don't care about the past anymore. I care about now. And I don't want her in my life. Not now, not ever. Before I could say anything else, she grabbed her keys from the counter and stormed out the door. I didn't try to stop her. She needed space just like Jacob did, but for completely different reasons. Later that night, as I sat alone in the living room, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jacob. Can we talk? I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face. I had a feeling this conversation was coming. When Jacob got home, he didn't sit down right away. He paced, rubbing the back of his neck like he was working up the courage to say something difficult. I let him take his time. Finally, he spoke. Dad, I think I want to see her again. I exhaled slowly. I figured. I don't know what I'm expecting. But I feel like if I don't give her a chance to explain everything, I'll always wonder. You know? I nodded. I get it. Jacob sat down, leaning forward, his elbows resting on his knees. But I don't want to hurt Emily, he admitted. She's my sister. I don't want this to come between us. I studied him for a moment. He was still my little boy in so many ways, but I could see the man he was becoming, the kind of man who thought about how his actions affected others. I was proud of him for that. This isn't about Emily, I told him. This is about you. You get to decide what's best for you, Jacob. No one else. He swallowed hard, nodding. I just don't know what I'll do if she lets me down again. And there it was, the real fear underneath it all. I leaned forward, meeting his eyes. Then you'll know without a doubt that you tried. And that's all you can do. Jacob took a deep breath. Okay, he said. I want to see her. I reached for my phone and sent a short message. Jacob wants to meet. Let's set a time. Amanda's reply came almost instantly. Thank you, Mark. I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing this for my son. The next time Jacob met Amanda, I didn't go with him. This was something he needed to do alone. I waited at home, trying to distract myself with work, but my mind kept drifting back to him. How was it going? Would she say the right things, or would she fumble it? Would he walk away feeling lighter, or would he come home carrying even more weight? Hours passed before I finally heard the door open. Jacob walked in, looking exhausted but different, lighter somehow. I studied him carefully. How'd it go? He ran a hand through his hair. I don't know, he admitted. It was a lot. She told me everything. Why she left, what she went through, how much she regrets it. I don't know if I believe all of it, but I think she was honest. I nodded, waiting. And I think I want to keep talking to her. Just slowly. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I'm proud of you, Jacob. He gave me a small, tired smile. Emily's going to hate this. I sighed. She might, but she'll come around. She just needs time. Jacob nodded. Yeah, I hope so. And that was the thing about wounds, they didn't heal overnight. Some took years. Some never fully closed. But for Jacob, for Amanda, for Emily, and even for me, the door had been left open, even if just a little. For the first time in 15 years, the past wasn't dictating the future. And that was enough.